Okay, so we're going to do the personal part of this Q&A here in this section, but there is one question that we'll get to at the end that was part of the hobby questionnaire, but I wanted to do that separately because it may take me a little while to explain it, and I may have to do it in a separate video. So you may see a 10.75 in this one. We'll see how this part goes and see how long it takes. The personal questions that were asked to me of my age, I'll be 49 this year. I was born 5 days after the astronauts landed on the moon. So any of you that are history buffs should be pretty easy to tell what my birthday is. I have 4 kids. Kyle is 28. Alex is 19, going on 20. And the twins will be 17 next month, Eric and Haley. And it's funny, because you'd be surprised how naive some people really are. But when we first had the babies, of course, we dressed Eric in blue and green, and we dressed Haley in their pinks and purples, and we didn't dress them the same, but we're walking, we'll say at the zoo, because we used to take Alex to the zoo a lot, and our nieces. So we were at the zoo. Well, I'll use that example because it kind of struck me as funny. This lady came up to us, we had a side-by-side stroller. Or did we have a side-by? No, we had the front and back stroller. We had the long one. Yeah, the Cadillac one, I called it. We didn't like the side-by-side one. This lady came up to us. She was probably in her early 50s, I would say. And she's like, "Oh, babies." And she's like, "Are they twins?" And we're like, "Yeah." And she said, "Are they boy and girl, or 2 boys, 2 girls?" We're like, "No, one's a boy, one's a girl." And she goes, "Oh, I was a twin." She goes, "Are they identical?" Okay, if you were a twin and you don't understand how twins work, it's pretty hard to have identical twins of opposite sexes. So those are just funny things that we've dealt with, and that question was asked, I can't tell you how many times. And anybody that has twins or was a twin, I'm sure that you could tell stories about that too. Her dad, my wife's dad, was a twin, and his sister tragically died at a young age. She actually fell out of a window. But so that's where the gene came from. Of course, it has to be on the mother's side of the family. And it's really interesting to see how a boy and a girl at the same age grow up differently. Haley was always taller, quicker. I want to say she learned things faster than Eric. Eric was more of a follower. Now Eric is probably about 8 or 9 inches taller than her. Probably in the top 2% of his class. Is probably going to have, I would imagine, with his running and his grades, will probably have he already has some people recruiting him for running. He was actually recruited by the Naval Academy and Duquesne University, a couple other universities that are, in the area that are Division I schools. So we'll see how he does. Of course, Alex is in Pitt Bradford playing baseball. He's a starting pitcher. And then Haley is talking about also going to Pitt Bradford to play softball. So we'll see. They are pretty athletic. The boys are a tad bit more athletic than Haley is, but she can hold her own. So yeah, that's that. And I've been married for 22 years now. I was married once before because Kyle's from my first marriage back when I was real young, 19 years old. It was just kind of one of those deals, just something stupid that I did, thinking that I was going to save Kyle's mom from her miserable childhood, and it just didn't work out that way. She just needed an excuse to get away from her parents, and I was that excuse. Next question is, am I a vet? No, I am not. I have absolute deep respect for anybody that has served our military, whether here on U.S. soil or abroad. But I couldn't join the service because I had surgery at age 17 to remove cartilage from my knee that I tore. At that point in time, you weren't allowed to have any kind of bodily parts removed. That kind of disqualified you from being in the service at the time. And it was relatively quickly after I had turned 18 I went and I did the selective service thing, to sign up for the draft and everything. And when I saw a recruiter, my friend wanted to talk to him at our Mill Creek Mall there where we live. It's just a big, mall plaza. It's shaped like an Uzi. If you ever see an aerial, go look at the Mill Creek Mall overhead view. It's the people that own it are the Cafaro family, which is a quote-unquote mob family from, I believe, Youngstown, Ohio. And the actual mall is shaped like an Uzi, the way that the building structure is done. So it's kind of interesting. Anyway, we were talking to this recruiter, and, you know, he's talking to him, and he's like, well, how about you? And I was like, you know, I was a picky eater. I was always worried about going into service. My dad was in the Air Force, and both my grandparents served during World War II. My grandfathers, anyway. But we started talking, and I was still limping, and he asked me what was wrong. I said, well, I'm recovering from knee surgery. He's like, what'd you have done? I was like, I tore my cartilage underneath my kneecap, and the meniscus tissue had to be removed. He's like, oh, you can't join anyway. So, you know, it kind of took me out of the whole draft prospect, too, from what I understand. Like, kind of null and void decks. He wrote my name down. I don't know what he did with it, but yeah, so no, I didn't serve in the armed services at all. But my dad did serve in the Air Force. He was stationed in Turkey during, right around the Vietnam War, I guess. That would have been 69, 70, 71, I think, till I was 2, because I didn't really get a chance to bond with Dad because he was gone right away. So, yeah, he served, and both my grandfathers were in World War II. My grandfather on my dad's side was in the Coast Guard, and he was part of the cleanup crew from Pearl Harbor. And I could never get him to talk about it, ever. I asked questions, and he answered a few things, but he would never really talk about it. My grandmother said it hit him really, really hard. You know, the memories of you can imagine, you know. And my other grandfather, my mom's dad, was a tank operator in Italy during World War II. So apparently he saw Mussolini hung. That's the story anyway. So I think he had pictures of it. And where those pictures are right now, I don't know. But I did see pictures of it. So that was kind of interesting. I always loved to listen to his stories. And he was more than willing to talk about it. You know, about what they did and, you know, how they treated, you know, dead bodies and Germans and stuff that they took from them. No different than, you know, the other way around. But, yeah, it was kind of interesting. Music. This is a big one. 3 people asked me what kind of music I listen to. Well, I'm pretty much a metal guy. I don't like the thrash metal as much now that I'm in my older years as I did when I was young. But I was around when Metal Blade Records first started, so, you know, Metallica, Exodus, Megadeth, Annihilator, Slayer, Anthrax, all those groups back then in the day that really started that kind of music, I was really into, you know, and then I got into Queensryche was always a favorite of mine. I just love the double guitars, I love the melody, I love their drums. Scott Rockenfield's one of my favorite drummers of all time. And I see that sound now is a little bit more prevalent. I see more drums, you know, and that heavy drumming, quicker drumming in groups like Avenged Sevenfold and Five Finger Death Punch and Disturbed and, you know, groups like that. Breaking Benjamin. Groups like that are groups that I'm into now. I really, really love Five Finger Death Punch, but I don't like the screaming part. I'm not a big fan of the screaming part. I like, you know, some of these singers have such good voices, and then they, you know, then they have to scream, and I just don't, you know, I don't like that. With Breaking Benjamin, I think it's our bass player that does that. So it's like every now and then, and I don't mind it if it's now and then in a song, but if the whole song is like that, I kind of just take that off the playlist. But I think right now most of my playlist songs are going to be Queensryche and some Iron Maiden. I love Iron Maiden. Disturbed, a big Disturbed fan. Five Finger Death Punch, Breaking Benjamin, a little bit of Avenged Sevenfold, a little bit of Judas Priest here and there. You know, I do like some Van Halen stuff. I think I liked them actually with Hagar more than I did with David Lee Roth. But of course, I was a big Kiss fan when I was a kid too, so there was that. Yeah, so right now I'm really into Breaking Benjamin. I really like their music. I like their singer, and I like what he's going through and the determination that the guy has to be out there, even though he's got an illness that they can't figure out what's going on with him. And he still goes out there, writes music, records music, goes and plays his concerts. I I just have respect for the guy. I really do. So yeah, I'm really into them. I'm looking forward to their new music, as well as I'm looking forward to Five Finger Death Punch's new album whenever their record label decides to release it. Okay, so next question is my favorite food. I love chicken. I'm a huge chicken fan. I like poultry, so chicken, turkey. I haven't had any of the stuff like quail or pheasant in a long time, but I loved it. Cornish hens, I used to love when my mom used to get them when we were kids. I used to love Cornish hen night, even though we didn't have them very often. I did enjoy that. I like Italian food. I'm a big Italian food person. I like lasagna. But I'm pretty much, with Italian food, it's meat, whether it's sausage or it's hamburger or whatever like that. Mozzarella cheese, the noodles and sauce. I'm not a big ricotta cheese fan and stuff like that. I don't get into that stuff very much. So the way that we make it here when we do is a little bit different than most people make it. But yeah, Italian food. And I like, snacks. I'm not a big snack person anymore. As I've gotten older, it seems like I can't eat at night as much as I used to. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to love Gibbles potato chips. My dad and I would fight over them. Gibbles potato chips. I used to like the pepperoni sticks again when I was a kid. I can't eat them so much now, basically because my ulcerative colitis it really does kind of hamper what I can and can't eat and how much I can and can't eat of certain things. And Italian food is definitely one of those. Favorite drinks. The question was presented both ways. What do I drink on a normal basis? I try to drink at least one bottle of water a day. I'm not very good at it, but I try to. And of course, I like Dr. Pepper, Mr. Pibb are my go-to soft drinks. I don't mind lemonade. I'm not a big fan of it, but I don't mind it. And again, I have to watch with juices, believe it or not. With colitis, juices aren't really all that great. I can live without wine. I'm not a huge fan of it. I did just get a bottle of blackberry wine a couple of weeks ago. It's almost gone now, but it's pretty good, but it's not as good as I thought it was going to be. I thought it would be a little bit sweeter and taste more like blackberries, and it really doesn't. It's got a strong alcohol taste to it, more than I thought it would. But if I'm going to go out and have a drink, I would rather have a mixed drink like Southern Comfort and Dr. Pepper, Southern Comfort, and whatever you put it in. I like Southern Comfort. I really do, and I do like blackberry brandy. I use that generally when I have a cold. If I have a chest cold or whatever, I believe it or not, I'll do a shot of it before I go to sleep, and it helps me sleep, and it helps, believe it or not, it helps break it up. That was a big thing with my grandfather. My mom's dad always said, if you got a cold, take a shot of blackberry brandy. I don't care if you're 10 years old, it'll get it out of you. So that's kind of where that came from. So yeah, that's really the end of the personal questions. There wasn't a ton of them. I think people are kind of shy to ask personal questions of me, but and that's fine. But again, if there's anything else you want to know, feel free to ask, and I can do these questions in other videos too. I can answer just a question here or there as we go. So I'm gonna end it here, and then I'm gonna start it back up again with the last question that I wanted to cover, which will probably bump this up to another 25-minute video. So I'll be right back.